Okay, we're back, everybody. We let you see the full interview there with Vice President Biden, and I asked you to call in if you would like to make some comments, ask questions. We've got Dorothy on line one. Whoops, try it again. Hi, Dorothy. How are you?
How are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for holding. Sorry to keep you waiting.
That's okay.
What's on your mind?
I think that...
Turn your TV down there. It's a little bit of a delay. Just talk over the phone, Dorothy.
Okay, well, let me go a little further back.
Okay.
I think that you should have a hearing because gun legislation is coming up, and I do believe, I don't know what his stand is on gun legislation, but no matter whether it's a gun show or a gun shop, I believe a background check of some type should be in place because everybody's got a gun. Some can have them and some can't. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to protect your home and have a gun in your home, but they'll keep...
You're saying that you would like a hearing, and you just want, right now it's 4-4. It's 8 people, 8 justices on the Supreme Court.
Don't you see, and if all 4 vote the same way,
right,
there's no bias. It either goes through or not. I think you need a replacement, or else don't make any major decision until the election, which is uncalled for, and I don't think they'll stand.
All right, thank you, Dorothy, so much.
We've already seen several decisions from the court since Justice Scalia passed away.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
The court has tied 4-4, which has the effect of really not making a decision, at least not one that has any precedent or impact nationally. It impacts the circuit court or the appeals court district that it came from, which is really kind of sort of messes things up. We're approaching the end of the term. The Supreme Court, as usual, has a bunch of really controversial bills or cases that they have to decide between now and roughly the end of June.
What is the decision? Was it just yesterday
about the birth
where
control?
They actually sent it back? So both sides were kind of pleased by
they
that.
punted to buy some time because I think the justices would like to be able to make decisions on this, but they know they're deadlocked 4-4. Nobody's going to change their mind, and until they get a new justice in there, however that person gets there, they can't decide some of these cases, and that's not going to be alone. I suspect there'll be a couple more you've got. I know we've got a very important affirmative
action in higher education, the birth control case, which again they decided yesterday or told us what they're going to do.
Are there any gun rights bills up there this time?
There are
gun
not
rights cases. I don't think there
any
is.
gun rights cases currently on the docket. But again, when we have this 4-4 split, it means that the decision of the lower court stands. And so it also creates a lot of, we have the Supreme Court for a reason. It's to decide these controversial national issues that can't get decided at the legislative level. We have to, we need some authority, some national authority, some unelected authority to guide the nation's ship, and thus when you have this situation of not having all hands on deck, it creates a lot of backlog. It creates a lot of pressure on the justices that are there with regard to the opinions they write and their ability to move forward public policy wise.
You brought your little
I keep my pocket constitution with me.
So we heard in the interview where he said what the Constitution says to the president, you shall, whatever. Well, why don't you read, where are we in the Constitution, by the way?
We are in Article, all right, so constitutional law
Here
lesson.
we go. I'm going to take notes.
Article 1 refers to the legislative branch. Article 2 refers to the executive branch, and Article 3 refers to the judicial branch.
Right.
Okay, so we're in Article 2. We are in Section 2, and then we're in subsection 2 of that, so 222.
Okay.
And it's the president shall have the power by and with the advice of the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, and he shall and he shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for. So we have that provision in the Constitution. And then another interesting article that I read in preparing for my talk with y'all is an opinion piece that brings another piece of law into the mix. Have you heard this argument that we actually have a congressional statute like the United States Code, so law that is passed by our legislative branch, and it reads, "The Supreme Court of the United States shall consist of a Chief Justice of the United States and 8 Associate Justices, any 6 of whom shall constitute a quorum." That's 28 U.S.C. Section 1, and that's been the law since 1911. And so this legal scholar is arguing that while the Senate is allowed to make up its own rules with regard to the committee processes, still there is a mandate by the United States Congress and the United States Constitution
That there needs to be 9.
that there's supposed to be 9.
Right.
It's interesting that that bill was passed and signed into law by William Howard Taft, who later became Chief Justice of the
Yes.
United States. He
Yes.
was not Chief Justice, obviously, at
Right.
the time and served later, but that's I had not heard that before, so there's actually a statutory reason to do that. I wonder why there isn't an effort to try to take the Congress to court about that. I don't know who'd have standing. I think that'd probably be the problem.
But there is
interesting.
law on the
Yeah.
books.
All right, let's go back to the phones and welcome. I keep hitting the wrong button. Lucy. Hey, Lucy.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Well, thank you for this show. I really do appreciate this. I try to follow the Supreme Court justices since it was made clear to me about 40, 50 years ago how important this is.
Yeah.
I've got a question to ask. I'm going to make a statement first, but if Hillary Clinton ran against the janitor on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and she won, they would challenge the vote. So the only thing that I could figure out that they would do, since, it's 4-4, is it would come down to a duel. Because the way that they've acted here lately, it just doesn't seem like the government is functioning. So, one of the things that they argue is that Obama's trying to stack the court. Well, about any president would stack, so to speak, the court. But now, anybody could answer this question, did not George W. Bush, in his last year or two before he got out of office, have his DOJ guy go around and start firing district judges, I think is how they were doing it, some here in Nashville, to stack the judges in these courts. I think there were sitting judges, I can't remember, to stack the judges so they would be more pro-business or ultra-conservative.
I don't remember that being.
Allegedly.
I don't remember that being justices. I do believe there was a controversy about some of the U.S. attorneys
Right.
around the country. That was
U.S. attorneys, yeah.
And of course, those are much more partisan positions by the nature of how they're appointed, because they're appointed directly
But
by the
isn't
president.
this, guys, this is politics at work. And President Obama wins 2 elections, popular vote, he is our president, and it was a sudden death. Justice Scalia, very sad. He was known as very well respected, sharp mind, but conservative, no doubt. The true conservative on the bench. And talking about stacking the bench, it's the president can put in there whoever he wants.
Well, of course, when
Or
everybody hears
appoint.
the word stack, they immediately think of Franklin Roosevelt, who did try to actually
Right.
change the Constitution and the makeup and the number of justices. And of course, that was after he was coming off his first term, when he was riding high and
Right.
won a huge
Had a little
re-election
more
victory,
power.
and wound up really getting rebuked about that. That was one of his biggest setbacks, particularly during his second term. So I think politicians have learned that you approach changing the Supreme Court very gingerly. It is interesting. There's a lot of talk lately, suddenly in the last couple of years, about making Supreme Court justices serve terms, not be appointed for life. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. Both parties would be afraid they'd get on the wrong end of that, and they wouldn't like the way that would go. But there's been some talk about that, because I'm not sure that the court, does the Constitution actually say that they're lifetime appointments?
Life tenure.
Yeah.
It does. Okay, so I guess they'd
Well,
have
actually,
to.
that's the Judiciary Act of 1789. I don't think it's in the
okay.
Constitution.
So therefore, they would have to amend the Constitution to do it. They just have to change the law. Well, that would still be tough.
Yeah.
Could this backfire? on Republicans for pulling this. And, you know, once before anyone was even announced, before President Obama even announced it was Merrick Garland, they came out, McConnell came out and said there should be no pick this year until after the election. He picks a somewhat moderate, that's about as moderate a candidate as they're going to see. So this doesn't happen. Let's say Hillary Clinton wins the election. She's going to put forth her own nominee as president. Maybe it's Merrick Garland, maybe it's someone else.
Well, there's two things to look at. First, will the Republicans going into next year still have control of the Senate? What happens in the presidential race? Does that have a down ballot impact and the Republicans lose enough seats? And they have to defend more seats this time because they have the majority.
Right.
They may not have the Senate, and therefore in their waning days they may decide that Merrick Garland's a better justice for what they're likely to get from the future Supreme Courts than waiting to see what Hillary Clinton brings them. Or for that matter, how much do they trust Donald Trump? Let's say he gets elected president. Are they willing to see that Donald Trump is going to send them, let's assume the Republicans take control of the Senate, are they going to send him a nominee? Are they going to send him nominees that they're going to be happy about? Because as you saw, they all said nice things when Mr. Trump went to Washington, but they didn't exactly all step up and say, I'm endorsing him either.
So the action could take place post-election, pre-inauguration in that
I still
time
think
period.
that's probably the best time period when it's likely to happen. Maybe even not even have the hearing until after that. Although we'll see if the election for some reason is going south one way or the other, there may be a move to go ahead and let's go ahead and have the hearing, and then we'll be ready to do what we want to. But don't forget, senators each individual senator has a right to be able to put a hold on these things. So there's lots of reasons. The Senate has lots of really weird rules, and that could create more problems for this going forward.
Interesting.
Right. No, I mean, just the procedural process of having the Judiciary Committee be the one that vets, and then they have to set the first hearing, and then, you know, I just think it's interesting, as controversial as Robert Bork was, for example, if people remember those hearings, at least he got a hearing.
Yeah.
Or Clarence Thomas. His
At least he got a hearing.
Very controversial.
All right, we got to take another break, everybody. More of your phone calls right after this. Stay with us.